This presentation contains high-level general information, not project-specific, which may not be applicable in all circumstances. National Grid makes no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, or usefulness of this information, or warranties of any kind whatsoever, expressed or implied. National Grid assumes no responsibility or liability for any errors or omissions in the content. Nothing contained in this presentation shall constitute legal or business advice or counsel. No party is authorized to modify this presentation, and this webinar is being recorded. Next slide, please. So in this webinar, we're going to start with a safety moment. Next, we'll be walking through the basics of the MassSmart Solar program, explain how solar works. We're going to review net metering, billing, payments, how to handle a move or change in ownership, and how to contact us with questions and concerns. So as John mentioned earlier, if you have a question, please open the link and put the question in the form, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the webinar. Next slide. So our safety moment is about fire safety preparedness. This is extremely important. If you haven't already, create a fire safety plan with your family so everyone knows how to handle a potential emergency. Once the fire alarm goes off, you only have approximately 2.5 minutes to escape safely. Make sure pathways are well lit and you have at least one emergency exit. Additionally, test your detectors monthly and practice your escape path regularly. So now we'll get started on the MassSmart program. So what is SMART? The current Massachusetts solar program is what SMART is, and it's made to encourage solar development. SMART stands for Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program. So we just refer to it as the MassSmart Solar Program. It was launched in late 2018. It's a tariff-based incentive program implemented by National Grid, Eversource, and Unitil, the 3 electric distribution companies, also known as the EDCs in Massachusetts. The program is overseen by the Department of Energy Resources and the Department of Public Utilities. The goal of this program is to provide the Commonwealth with 3,200 megawatts or 3.2 gigawatts of distributed solar PV systems over the next several years. The MassSmart Solar program is run by a third-party administrator, ClearResult. Our partners at ClearResult respond to general program inquiries and interact with solar developers, EDCs, and state agencies. Typically, the solar developer will process your MassSmart application on your behalf and submit all of your paperwork. You're not actually approved for the SMART program until after your system has already been installed. It can sometimes take several months before you are approved for SMART after your system's interconnected. Once approved, small projects or systems 25 kW AC and less will receive incentive payments for a period of 10 years, starting from the date the generation meter is set, if your project is in SMART blocks 1 through 8. If your project is in the SMART blocks 9 through 16, the payment effective date is set based on the next billing cycle after your final statement of qualification. Next slide.
So how will your meters work under the SMART program? There are 2 meters installed for small projects in the SMART program. You're going to have a generation meter installed and a net meter installed at your property. The generation meter is used to determine the SMART incentive payment and should only record your total generation. The net meter is used for your monthly bill and spins in 2 directions. Backwards when you're exporting power to the grid, and forwards when you are using power from the grid. You may have an additional meter which records your generation as well. This is likely a customer-owned meter, not a National Grid meter, installed by the solar developer. And we'll read your meter once every 25 to 35 days. So we won't know how much you generate on a specific day because we read your meter every 25 to 35 days. So we'll know how much your total bill will be for that month, but we won't know what you might have used or generated on a specific day. Next slide. And what is net metering? The net metering incentive is the difference between what you generate and what you use during your billing period. If you use more than you generate, you'll get a bill for the difference owed to National Grid. If you generate more than you use, you will receive an on-bill credit at the net metering incentive rate, which is based on the following charges below. So it's based on the distribution charge, transmission charge, transition charge, and National Grid Basic Service Supply Rate. Any other rates that you may receive on a bill where you don't use more than you generate, where you don't generate more than you use, are not part of the net metering incentive when you overgenerate. Next slide. So this image that we have here just kind of helps to detail exactly how the solar panels work on your roof. You can see at the top you have the sun, you have your solar panels. It's going to convert the energy from direct current DC to alternating current AC to use in your home, school, or business. This energy is then used in your home, school, or business. And any power that you don't use from your generation is going to be sent out to the grid. That's going to force your meter to go backwards and record negative on your meter. And then anytime you're not generating enough at that time to cover the power in your home, you're going to be pulling power from the grid and your meter is going to move forward. And here's an example of a customer who would be under generating on their bill. So in this example, this customer on May 14th of 2021, their meter has a reading of 22,000. And on 6/15, we read their meter again, and the meter reads 22,500. This means that the customer used 500 kilowatt hours of electricity in excess of their generation during the bill period, and you're going to receive a bill for 500 kilowatt hours. That means the meter went forward by 500 between the two reads taken, and you're going to get charged for 500 kilowatt hours that you used in excess of your total generation. And that bill will look the same as any other bill you had prior to having solar panels installed. It'll just be lower than what you might have had the year before at the same time frame. Next slide, please. And here's an example of somebody who overgenerated for the month. So on May 14th of 2021, this customer's read was 22,000 on their meter. And on June 15th of 2021, their meter reads 21,500. That means the meter went backwards 500 kilowatt hours. So therefore, there was actually excess generation of 500 kilowatt hours for that month. You overgenerated for that period, and you're going to receive an on-bill credit for that 500 kilowatt hours multiplied by the net metering incentive rate. So you're going to get that based off of the distribution charge, transition charge, transmission charge, and the National Grid Basic Service Supply Rate for that month. If you have a separate supplier, it is still based on National Grid Supply Rate, not the supplier that you have on your invoice. Next slide.
Shifting gears a little bit, we'll talk specifically about the SMART incentive payment. So the Mass SMART incentive is a monthly payment for the total generation from your solar panels. So each month, the utility issues approved small solar customers an incentive payment for 10 years. That payment may be provided as a paper check or a direct deposit. And the payment will be issued to the payee as indicated in our company records. During the application process, we receive a signed form from the system owner that determines the payee, the system owner, and the customer of record. And the incentive payment is based on the incentive rate multiplied by the total generation as recorded on the generation meter. And as a reminder, the generation meter should always spin backwards and record negative values. Next slide, please. So how is the SMART incentive payment calculated? This incentive rate is calculated based on the total compensation rate minus the value of energy. So your total compensation rate is calculated at the time your project is signed up for the program. There are 16 capacity blocks in the Mass SMART program, and they're allocated to solar projects mostly on a first come, first served basis. And compensation rates decline with each subsequent block. For example, if you were to enroll your project in block 8, your base compensation rate would be higher than if you enrolled your project in block 9. The SMART program also includes certain adders, which add value to your compensation rates when eligible. For small residential systems, there is a storage adder, which incentivizes customers to install a battery paired with their solar system. The storage adder is the only adder available for small systems. So if your solar system is paired with battery storage, your final compensation rate will be the base compensation rate plus the battery storage adder, if that's available, and then minus the value of energy. So this will be visible on your bills once your project has final approval, and this is generally a few months after the meters are set. Next slide, please. So as noted in the previous slide, smart compensation rates are designed to account for both the smart incentive and the value of the energy that is being avoided by generating solar energy. This second component is referred to as the value of energy, and it is subtracted from the compensation rate. The value of energy is determined when the project is approved for the program and is set from that point forward. And the value of energy is calculated based on the distribution charge, the transition charge, the transmission charge, and a 3-year average of National Grid's basic service supply rate at the time of approval for SMART. So why is the total compensation rate reduced by the value of energy to determine a SMART incentive payment? So that value of energy represents the value that you receive from offsetting power at your premise and therefore reducing your electric bill. The total compensation rate is the maximum value that you're entitled to receive from the kilowatt hours generated by the solar panels. You're receiving your total compensation rate through a mixture of electricity bill reductions and SMART incentive payments. So to reiterate, while our electric service rates may change every quarter or 6 months, the value of energy is locked in when you're approved for Mass Smart and will not change for the entirety of your 10-year incentive term. Next slide, please. So again, the SMART compensation comes in 2 forms: the reduction to an electric bill and the SMART incentive payments. And we'll note here, if you don't own the panels, then your only compensation is a reduced electric bill. So the total compensation rate is the maximum compensation, again, for each kilowatt hour generated by the project. That's determined by the program administrator clear result at the time of approval. And to reiterate, the value of energy, or VOE, is the value that you're receiving from reducing your electricity consumption. And again, that VOE rate is calculated using the distribution charge, the transition charge, transmission charge, and the 3-year average of basic service supply rate at the time of approval for SMART. Next slide, please. And just a final note here on the payee of the SMART system. As I noted earlier, the payee of the SMART system can be the solar company, the system owner, or any other person or business entity. And the system owner will choose the payee at the time of the application. If you're leasing your solar panels, it is likely that the SMART incentive payment displayed on your bill is going to be paid to your solar company. So please refer to your contract with the solar company for this information. And annually, the system owner will receive the 1099 tax form if incentive payments exceed $600 for the calendar year. Note that National Grid does not tax the payee, and please contact a tax professional with any specific questions related to your situation. Next slide.
So next, we're going to review some example Mass Smart customer bills to show you what to expect going forward. So this first bill image shows you how your monthly Mass Smart payment will be displayed on your bill. And what you're going to see on the screen here is going to show you the service period that the incentive payment is for. Under service period, the total number of days. It's going to show you the current reading and the previous reading and how much your total usage was. That current reading should say 99,500 as it goes backwards from 0. And that would record your total usage as negative 500 kilowatt hours. Below, what you'll see is the SMART compensation rate and how it's calculated. So you're going to have your total compensation rate that's determined by clear result when you're approved for the SMART program. So in this case, this person's incentive rate is 28 cents per kilowatt hour. It's going to be multiplied by their total generation of 500 kilowatt hours. And the total compensation rate comes out at $140. The value of energy is the value basically that you're receiving from lowering the cost of your electric bill. So the value of energy is actually determined at the beginning when your project is approved for the SMART program. So it is set up at the beginning, and it's, in this case, this customer's value of energy is 20.317 cents per kilowatt hour. And then it's going to be multiplied by the total generation for a total of $101.59. So essentially it's saying that you're benefiting $101.59 from the solar panels on your actual electric bill, lowering the cost of your bill by this much. And in most cases, it's probably a little bit more than that. And you're going to receive a payment for the difference between the compensation rate and value of energy. So you're going to get a payment of $38.41 for this particular bill period. Next slide. And this is a display of a bill where a customer has used more than they've generated for this bill period. So as you can see, if you pick up any utility bill that you have prior to having your panels installed, it's going to look pretty much the same as any other bill you've ever received from National Grid. It's just that it's going to be most likely lower because you're generating power. So here you're going to see the bill period here is August 29th to September 28th. You're going to see the two readings, your current reading and your previous reading, both say actual on them. And there's total usage. So your total usage over what you generated for this period of time is 203 kilowatt hours. So you're going to receive a bill for 203 kilowatt hours for the month, like you would normally receive a bill from National Grid. Next slide. And this would be the portion of the bill that has the Mass Smart incentive payment on it. And on here, what you're going to see is that the total generation for this period of time is 1,969 kilowatt hours. And here, this customer's total compensation rate is 31.126 cents per kilowatt hour. And their value of energy calculation at the time they were approved for the program was 19.942 cents. So this customer is going to get a little over 11 cents per kilowatt hour for what they generate as an incentive payment. And in this case, they're going to receive an incentive payment for $220.21 in total. Next slide. On this bill display, this customer has been a net exporter for the month. And that means that they've generated more than they've used. So what you'll see here is you'll see their service period here is May 14th to June 16th. Their bill period was 33 days. Their current reading was 8,605. And their previous reading was 9,946. So their meter went backwards 1,341. And they're going to receive an on-bill credit for 1,341 kilowatt hours of power. They're still going to receive a customer charge of $7, but you're going to see here there's a line item that says net met CR, which is net metering credit. And the net metering credit rate for this particular period is 21.393 cents per kilowatt hour multiplied by their total excess generation. So they're receiving an on-bill credit here of $286.89 to go towards their electric bill. And then below that, you'll see the distributed solar charge at 0.00315 cents per kilowatt hour. And that bill, that rate is actually going to be based off of your total amount of power you used for the month. So there's a small fee there. It's $1.98. So the total credit you receive in total is $277.91. That sits on your electric bill that can carry over from month to month to go towards future bills when you may not generate more than you use. Next slide. So once your account receives authority to interconnect, you will begin receiving net metering credits. Your generation is lowering the cost of your bill. So while you're waiting for the SMART program to be approved, SMART incentive to be approved, you're still going to be receiving the benefits of your solar panels. So you'll still be receiving, your generation will still be lowering the cost of your bills, and there's still going to be a delay between your authority to interconnect date and receiving your SMART incentive payments. Paperwork is being submitted to ClearResult, which is the third-party vendor handling applications, and most likely that information is being submitted by your solar provider. The time it takes to be approved will vary depending on how quickly all the paperwork is submitted accurately to ClearResult. Once approved for the SMART program, please check your project's block allocation, as incentive payments effective date is set differently depending on when you apply to SMART. This process can take up to 90 days or more after being approved for SMART. You will not pay twice for previous bills already paid. Note, we are not generating a new account for you to pay for previous invoices you have paid already. We are creating invoices to generate the payment amounts in our bill system. So if you are on blocks 1 through 8 and we have to backdate to the date your generation meter has been installed for your Mass Smart incentive, we do have to cancel the invoices that we originally sent you. and send you new invoices with these smart incentive payments on them in order to get those payments out to you. Next slide. In Schedule Z. So the Schedule Z is used to allocate net metering credits from your account to another account within the same load zone in Massachusetts. The load zone can be located on the left-hand side of your bill in the blue area. Host customers must complete a Schedule Z form, even if the net metering credits are to remain on the account hosting the solar. National Grid will transfer net metering credits on a percentage basis to the accounts listed on your Schedule Z. These forms can be updated 4 times per calendar year.
So this next slide is about what to do if you are the system owner and you move, or you're moving into a house with a smart system, just what to do about moving with distributed generation or with solar on the roof. So during a sale, when the home has solar panels, there should be an agreement between the buyer and the seller regarding the solar panels. Please make sure that the new owner is aware that they need to immediately submit documentation of the change to National Grid in order to begin to receive the smart incentive payments. Forms are located on our post-interconnection page on our website. And here's the link. So anything that you need form-wise will be here. Next slide. If you have questions about anything with SMART, so if your project has not yet been approved for SMART, please contact your developer regarding your project status. If your project has been approved for SMART, please contact our call center for all billing and transfer of service inquiries. And if you are experiencing issues with billing prior to being approved for SMART, also please contact our call center. Do not reach out to ClearResult with any billing related questions. National Grid cannot answer questions related to your contract with your solar developer, so please contact your solar developer for those types of questions regarding your system size, or maybe, who is the owner and who is the payee if that hasn't already been determined. Next slide. So this wraps up our presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to learn more about the many benefits of solar in Massachusetts.